Chapter 8: A One-Ice Sea Monster. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month has passed. The sailing time far exceeded expectations, which made Zhang Yi feel a little depressed. Long voyage is a very boring thing. Being trapped on a swaying icebreaker, facing the same people and scenes every day. Although it was almost the same when he was in the shelter. But there is a sense of steadiness on land, and he can often go out for a walk. But on the ice sea, it is impossible to leave the ship. It is not impossible for Zhang Yi to land when passing through the land. However, with his stable character, this approach is obviously inappropriate. First, there is no need for any supplies on the ship, and the resources in his hands are enough. Second, there are few supplies on land, but it is full of gangs and pirates. When passing through several small countries, the Jinfeng experienced robbery again. And Zhang Yi's approach is also very decisive, cutting the grass and eradicating the roots. Basically, none of the pirates and gangs on land he met survived. But there is one thing that is more troublesome. Their ship has been exposed to the sight of the Columbia ocean-going force. After all, as the world's #1 naval power, Columbia's satellite monitoring system is no less than Huaxiu's nebula. Moreover, in order not to alert the enemy, Zhang Yi and his team did not use military shielding equipment. This made their whereabouts particularly obvious. Zhu Zheng discussed this with Zhang Yi and Zhu Yonk. Since they were evacuating overseas Chinese under the banner, there was no need to hide it. After all, the core content of the mission was a secret in someone's hands. Moreover, Columbia's ocean naval forces were not short of supplies, and their own sons would guarantee their supplies. Therefore, there was basically no need to worry about Columbia's oceanic forces attacking Zhang Yi and his team. On the 39th day of sailing at sea, Zhang Yi and his team encountered an extremely strange scene at sea. On this day, Zhang Yi was discussing calligraphy with Shou Ke in the cabin. Zhang Yi personally liked cursive writing more and often used it to cultivate his sentiments. Suddenly, the hull shook violently for a long time. Lao Tian came over urgently and banged on the doors bang bang bang, and the urgency was unprecedented. Zhang Yi had to clean the desk hastily, let Shou Ke sort out the clothes, and then went to open the door for Lao Tian. "What's going on? You're so flustered. What a mess." Zhang Yi frowned. But Lao Tian and the two sailors behind him said to Zhang Yi in horror, "Mr. Zhang, we met a sea monster." Zhang Yi and Zhou Ke said in surprise, "Sea monster? This day has finally come." From the moment they went out to sea, Zhang Yi and Zhou Ke imagined that they would encounter sea monsters in the ocean. There was some worry, but there was also some expectation. When they were near the coast, they once encountered a mutated whale, but that whale was just huge in size and did not show too strong destructive power. Zhang Yi analyzed that it might have been driven from the deep sea area to the near sea. It was because the real overlord appeared in the deep sea that it was afraid of being turned into food and fled to the less dangerous near sea. But it never expected that it would not die at the hands of marine creatures, but at the hands of four-legged beasts on land. Sometimes, the one who kills you may not be a colleague, but a cross-border one. Zhang Yi came back to his senses, pressed the bracelet on his wrist with his right hand, and the black battle suit was automatically put on his body. "Wait for me a moment." He closed the door and began to take out the combat uniform and put it on. Zhou Ke was not idle either, and also began to change clothes. The combat uniform of the investigation team was exchanged by Zhang Yi. He saved Zhu Zheng and drove away the Samsara team, and the huge points he got were used to exchange for high-tech weapons. At least everyone in the family has a set, including Aunt Zhou Haimei, who only cooks at home all day and helps Uncle Yu relieve stress. After Zhang Yi was dressed, he opened the door and came to the deck with Zhou Ke. The Jinfeng was shaking violently, and the sailors on the deck had to tie safety ropes around their waists. There was a violent storm outside, and the eyes were gray and blurred. At the end of the distant sea, the waves were rolling, as if something huge was churning, and from time to time there were terrifying roars in the ears, as if from the deep-sea gods from ancient times. Zhu Yonk blocked the exit of the cabin, looking scared, but also looking like she wanted to watch the excitement. Zhang Yi pulled her aside. "You two stay here. Don't run out. Be careful not to be knocked into the sea by the waves." Zhu Yonk was touched. Zhang Yi actually cared about her. But in fact, Zhang Yi just felt that if she died, it would be difficult to explain to Zhu Zheng. The deck was too shaking, so Zhang Yi directly activated 2 realms breaking bond and air control technique to make his body float above the gene foam. Now he can finally see the full picture of the sea monster that Lao Tian mentioned. About 20 nautical miles away from the gene foam, the seawater has been dyed a large area of blood. It is not a sea monster, but many heads. Literally, Zhang Yi saw many heads. Otherwise, he would not be able to judge the number of sea monsters. In the ice blue ocean, the size of the sea monsters was too huge. Just by looking at it, he could tell that they were all over 50 meters. Zhang Yi continued to fly, trying to see more clearly. After he flew to a height of several thousand meters, he finally saw it clearly. 1, 2, 5. A total of 5 sea monsters. 4 huge sharks were besieging a monster that looked like a sea snake or a conger eel. Those sharks had also undergone mutations. I don't know if they had lived in Neon before, so they looked particularly hideous and twisted. 1 shark had eyes all over its head, and some had 2 heads. Zhang Yi even saw a shark with arms similar to those of humans. They frantically pounced on the giant sea snake in front of them. The reason why it was called a sea snake was that it had a narrow body over 100 meters long and was covered with black scales. It was just that it had a huge sharp angle on its head, and there were hundreds of black protrusions on its back that were larger than the shark's dorsal fin. The huge body rose and fell on the sea, like a series of hills, huge and terrifying. Cry. Facing the siege of 4 mutant sharks, its head was raised high above the water, and its body kept sweeping, and a large number of scales fell into the sea, and the blood dyed the sea area red for more than 10 kilometers. Its huge sharp corners suddenly emitted a strong purple light, and finally sprayed out a beam of light, sweeping towards the 4 sharks around it. Immediately, a shark was directly pierced by the beam, and it sank to the bottom of the sea after a shrill scream. Chapter 802. Don't get involved. The battle between the sea monsters made Zhang Yi shudder with fear. The sharks bit the sea snake's body desperately. The sea snake's body was very long and was covered with scars from being bitten, revealing its skeleton. But it was equally terrifying. After killing a shark with the laser on its head, its huge head leaned back hard and then stabbed into the back of a shark fiercely.
Just like a
knife cutting pork, with this puff sound, it seemed as if a blood waterfall was opened, and shark blood gushed out all over the sky. Zhang Yi couldn't help swallowing his saliva. After he came to his senses, he immediately returned to the deck. "Go at full speed, and leave this area," Zhang Yi said to Lao Tian. The sea monster was too scary, and it was completely incomparable to the mutant whales Zhang Yi had encountered before. Just talking about the 4 sharks, their size and destructive power were terrifying, and I'm afraid they were even better than the captain of the Tianlong pirates, Canute, who he had encountered before. If the sea monsters found their ship and came to attack, it would be a big trouble for Zhang Yi. Upon hearing this, Old Tian also knew that the situation was very dangerous, and hurriedly shouted to the crew to go full throttle and set off in the opposite direction of the sea monster. The gene foam was far away from the sea area, but they could hear the roar of the sea monster from time to time. Even Zhang Yi turned his head and saw thunders falling from the sky and striking in that sea area. 10 minutes later, the ship sailed out dozens of nautical miles, and everything around returned to calm. But Zhang Yi always felt that the air was filled with the smell of blood. It was a thrilling battle. The danger in the deep ocean is much more terrible than on land. Zhang Yi stood on the deck and sighed in his heart. "Something's wrong, boss, it's very wrong," Old Tian suddenly said to Zhang Yi. "Huh? What's wrong?" Zhang Yi asked. Old Tian lowered his head and looked at the sea. The seawater was red and mottled with blood. Marine creatures are extremely sensitive to the smell of blood. Logically, the smell of blood here is so strong that fish should gather here. But why can't I see any fish around here? Zhang Yi heard this, and an idea emerged in his mind. At the same time, his passive ability, Time Echo, was activated. Time Echo, one of the abilities that Zhang Yi awakened after absorbing Fengguangyuan Ren, Takeuchi Mayumi, and Canute. Time-related ability, passive skill. When Zhang Yi is about to be attacked, give an early warning. Below. Zhang Yi looked down at her feet, or, to be more precise, below the sea surface. A feeling of being stared at by a ferocious beast instantly hit her heart. Zhang Yi did not hesitate to attach the ability to fly in the air to the entire ship, and then open the dimensional door under the hull. Boom! Shortly after he completed this wave of operations, the seawater in the surrounding seas suddenly spun wildly. If you look down from a high altitude, you can find that a huge vortex began to form with the area where the Jinfeng was located as the center. It was a vortex with a radius of more than 1,000 meters. In the depths of the whirlpool, huge black dorsal fins were looming among the waves. It's that sea snake. Zhang Yi recognized it. It was the giant sea snake that had just fought 4 mutant sharks. Unexpectedly, it actually noticed the humans in this direction and chased after them. Perhaps it discovered Zhang Yi, a unique human. Zhang Yi lifted up the Jinfeng and leaned on the railing to look at the deep sea. The sea snake's huge eyes were blood red, staring at him intently. Sure enough, it came for Zhang Yi. The blood-red pupils were full of bloody killing. Zhang Yi could be sure that its eyeballs were twice as big as Zhang Yi's entire body. Although he didn't know if it could understand human language, Zhang Yi still used a loudspeaker to amplify and shout. "We're not your enemies. We're just passing by." The sea monster ignored Zhang Yi's explanation. It emerged from the ocean, pointed its huge, sharp horns at Zhang Yi, and then shot out a purple light. Zhang Yi's pupils shrank, and he immediately opened the second-dimensional door to block in front of him. A steady stream of lasers shot into the dimensional gate, and it stopped after half a minute. The intensity of this energy is very high, and the pressure it brings to Zhang Yi is definitely no less than that of a captain-level alien. And in the ocean, its home ground, it may even destroy an investigation team. If it was not Zhang Yi who appeared here today, but Deng Xintong or Bian Zhenwu, it would almost be a certain death. Because the sea monster only needs to destroy their ship to slaughter them at will. No wonder Zhu Zheng insisted on letting me do this task. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. They call me absolute defense. The sea monster's attack did not work, which made it much more vigilant. But the huge body is still hovering in the ocean, and the huge body that keeps wriggling brings people an indescribable pressure. But Zhang Yi was also angry. "I didn't provoke you. Why are you pretending to be with me?" Full counterattack. The absorbed laser was reversed by him and returned intact. At this moment, watching his attack being bounced back, the sea monster's eyes showed a blank look. However, it also realized the power of its attack. After a big battle, its body was already scarred, and when it was hit by the laser in the torso, it immediately let out an extremely terrifying roar. Scales and flesh flew everywhere, and even the charred skeleton inside could be seen. In Zhang Yi's right hand, the power of the void had begun to condense, ready to turn into a fatal blow to completely take its life. The sea monster finally realized that the strength of the man in front of him could kill it. It roared, plunged its head into the water without hesitation, and swam towards the deep sea. Spear of the Void. The unstable dark matter was condensed, and a spear more than 2 meters long was extended. Precise shooting. Many afterimages appeared in Zhang Yi's eyes, and finally, these afterimages gradually merged into one. It turned out that the ability of precise shooting was Zhang Yi's earliest time ability, and it could also be said to be the prototype of the Time Echo. It can predict the trajectory of the opponent's actions. And after being locked by the Time Echo, there is no escape. The Spear of the Void flew out of his hand and sank into the sea. On its route, the seawater split open as if it had encountered a natural enemy. Millions of tons of seawater made way for it to form a cylindrical channel, chasing after the sea monster. Boom! In an instant, The seawater rushed into the huge channel and submerged everything. But soon, bright red, and even some black blood rolled out from below. Zhang Yi frowned. Since he improved his strength, the power of the Spear of the Void has also been greatly improved, such as being able to complete the change from surface to point killing. But even so, it is unknown whether this super-large sea monster can be killed in one blow. After all, this is the ocean, its territory, and Zhang Yi cannot chase it. Get away from me. Otherwise, next time, I will definitely kill you. Chapter 803, Yanlu Island. The sea surface returned to calm, but the blood dyed the surrounding sea area red, which looked extremely terrifying and weird. On Lao Tian's side, the radar showed that there were no large creatures nearby. Zhang Yi asked, "How far is it from Yanlu Island?" Lao Tian replied, "There are still more than 1,000 nautical miles. At the current speed, we can reach the destination in 3 days. Always have someone in the radar room to observe. The sea monster may not be dead." Zhang Yi reminded. Lao Tian couldn't help swallowing his saliva. If you are targeted by such a monster, you have to be nervous every day when sailing on the sea. Seeing his panic, Zhang Yi said lightly, "It is seriously injured and must be looking for a place to heal now. It is impossible to harass us again in a short time. We will leave here immediately after picking up people. The speed of returning should be faster than when we came. As long as we return to land, there is no need to worry about the problem of sea monsters." Lao Tian nodded and went back to steer the ship. Zhang Yi returned to the cabin, and Zhu Yonk ran over to ask, "How is the sea monster? Did you kill it?" Zhang Yi said, "It was seriously injured and hid in the deep sea. It won't affect us for the time being." Zhu Yonk looked worried. "It's not dead. What if it targets us later?" Zhang Yi thought, "How the hell do I know? We'll talk about it when the time comes. Anyway, the worst-case scenario is that the ship is destroyed and he can take Zhou Kud away. As for the others, they can only do their best. Of course, the possibility of this situation is relatively low. With him, the probability of this monster wanting to destroy the gene foam is about 0. It's about 3 days to Yanlu Island," Zhang Yi said to Zhu Yonk. "Contact the people over there." Zhu Yonk's eyes slowly lit up. "Finally, we can go ashore." She was almost suffocated after more than a month at sea. The corners of her mouth were raised, and a proud look appeared on her face. Zhu Zheng put the communication channel with the people of Yanlu Island in her hand. Perhaps Zhu was worried that Zhang Yi would completely ignore Zhu Yonk. "Well, come to my room and we'll slowly communicate with the people there." She smiled at Zhang Yi's face. "Whatever." Zhang Yi didn't care and followed her to her room. Zhu Yonk's room was well decorated and was considered a first-class cabin on the entire ship, second only to Zhang Yi and Zhou Kud's. After Zhang Yi entered the room, he sat directly on the chair. Zhu Yonk reached out and took out a box from the closet. It was her communication device. She unfolded the device on the floor and began to contact the people on Yanlu Island. This process was a bit long. Zhu Yonk tried several times, but did not get any response. Zhang Yi frowned. "What's going on? Did something unexpected happen?" They sailed on the sea for more than a month. In the end times, this time is enough to make many things change. It is possible that those people on Yanlu Island have died. Zhu Yonk frowned slightly. "I'll try again." She did not give up. When she was working, her expression was still quite focused. After a few minutes, the communicator connected the signal.
"Got it."
Her eyes lit up. "Hello, are you Shualong?" Shualong is the code name of the man on Yanlu Island. It's not that Jiangnan district doesn't know his information, but using code names when communicating can avoid being monitored. Zhang Yi walked over and listened to the voice on the other end. It was the voice of a young man, with fatigue, tension, and excitement. "I'm Shualong. Is this my hometown? Are you here? It's very dangerous here. More than half of our team has died. We can't hold on any longer." Zhu Yonk said calmly. "Don't be nervous. We will arrive in about 3 days." Zhu Yonk said while operating the instrument in his hand. This set of instruments is connected to the nebula system and can directly observe the whole picture of Yanlu Island. Zhu Yonk is choosing a suitable landing site. Where are you now? We will land in an area close to you. In the northwest direction, there is... The voice hesitated and continued. There is a cliff and a secret cave below. We are there. Zhu Yonk left and enlarged the map of that area. The surroundings of Yanlu Island were covered by a layer of white ice, which made some of the originally steep cliffs walkable. The place where Xuelong and his companions were hiding was under a cliff. If it weren't for the satellite map, it would be really difficult to find. Zhang Yi leaned over and asked, "Is there any danger on the island?" Xuelong said weakly, "There are many people on the island, not just us. There are indigenous people, and there are also people who fled there later. There are volcanoes and geothermal heat on the island, so they feed many people. But there is not enough food. Some people started killing people to survive. Not many people on the island were frozen to death. They all died of starvation or illness, but most were killed and made into food." Zhu Yonk's expression was very heavy, and she quickly comforted him. "Don't be afraid. We are here to take you home this time. We will definitely protect your safety." Zhang Yi leaned over and continued to ask, "Are there any aliens? They are mutant humans or creatures with powerful abilities. Are there any armed organizations?" Xuelong replied, "There are armed organizations, which are local gangs. However, some people have suddenly developed very powerful forces." After confirming that there were no professional troops, Zhang Yi felt much more relaxed. As for the aliens, there is no need to worry too much. A small Yanlu island does not have the conditions to give birth to powerful aliens. If there really were, Xuelong would not have the opportunity to ask for help from the Jiangnan district, and this place would have been ruled by him long ago. He patted Zhu Yonk's shoulder, motioning her to continue chatting with Xuelong, and Zhang Yi had finished asking his own questions. He didn't care about anything else. He was only responsible for coming to pick people up. Zhang Yi left Zhu Yonk's room, then came to the control room and called Lao Tian. "Old Tian, we are about to reach our destination. You ask everyone to prepare their weapons and equipment, and they must wear bulletproof vests. Also, pay attention to the surrounding sea areas and tell me immediately if there is any disturbance." Due to his cautious character, Zhang Yi would not trust any stranger. Therefore, he must be well prepared to feel at ease. "Yes, Mr. Zhang." 3 days later, the Jinfeng arrived at Yanlu Island without any accidents. This island, located in the ocean, close to the equator, was formed by the eruption of an underwater volcano. And it erupts once every 37 years. It is an island formed by an active volcano. Therefore, Yanlu Island has huge geothermal energy underground. In the 1950s, humans were able to control the volcanic eruption of Yanlu Island well and reduce the harm. And Yanlu Island has also been developed into a tourist destination. Especially the local hot springs are very famous. After the end of the world, more than 5,000 refugees came here to avoid disasters. Together with the local Aborigines and tourism industry practitioners, the total population is more than 20,000. These are the basic information about Yanlu Island. Chapter 8:04 You are going to die. At about 9:30 in the morning, a biting cold wind blew from the northwest to the edge of the equator. As the hottest area in the world, the current real-time temperature here is about -20 degrees. The Jinfeng approached Yanlu Island from the sea. It was covered with snow and the offshore area was condensed into a large layer of ice. As the most advanced icebreaker at present, the Jinfeng naturally does not need to dock at the offshore periphery. The huge and heavy hull directly crushed the ice and came to the edge of Yanlu Island. According to the communication with Xuelong, it came to the northwest of Yanlu Island and found a port for docking here. Zhang Yi asked everyone to get ready and then asked Zhu Yonk to contact the man codenamed Xuelong. Zhu Yonk immediately contacted Xuelong with a communicator. Zhang Yi assigned people, a total of 16 crew members, and 10 people stayed on the ship. He himself planned to take 6 crew members ashore. Not long after, Zhu Yonk got in touch with Xuelong. "They will be here soon," Zhu Yonk said to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi nodded, and then asked the sailor to lower the gangway to go ashore. Is the substance called the source of God on this island? Zhang Yi looked at the snow-covered island in front of him and thought curiously. Zhang Yi was still very curious about the mysterious substance that could enhance the strength of the aliens and even allow Zhang Yi to break through the limitations of the gene lock and reach the realm of Epsilon. If he could get it, it would be the best. Although he was not particularly interested in improving his strength, in the end times, only with strong enough capital could he live well. Zhou Kuo and Zhu Yong followed Zhang Yi, both wearing white combat uniforms. It is said that the hot springs here are very good. Zhou Kuo said with a smile beside Zhang Yi, if possible, I would like to soak in it later. More than half a month of sailing was really tiring. Now that he can finally step on land, and heard that the geothermal energy here is very rich, naturally people can't help but want to experience it. Hot springs contain a lot of minerals, which are very good for the body. Zhou Kuo put one hand on Zhang Yi's shoulder and said with a smile. She didn't hug Zhang Yi's arm, because Zhang Yi, who was on alert, hated others hugging his arm. Seeing this, Zhu Yong couldn't help feeling jealous. After a long sea voyage, the relationship between her and Zhang Yi didn't make much progress. Zhang Yi always kept a distance from her and drew a clear line from the beginning. She never understood what was wrong with her. Just as Zhang Yi and his friends were observing the situation on Yanlu Island and discussing the hot springs, Zhang Yi suddenly became alert. Be careful. He immediately deployed the domain of Two Realms Destruction to protect the people around him. The next moment he heard gunshots. In the snow in the distance, there were shadows of people. They suddenly emerged from the snow and started to shoot fiercely at Zhang Yi and his friends. However, all these bullets were swallowed by the alien space. A sneak attack? But they are just ordinary bullets, not aliens. Zhang Yi reacted quickly. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. These people must be the dangers on the island that Xu Long mentioned before. There was no way. The gene phone was too conspicuous when it came to Yanlu Island, and it must have attracted the attention of some people. They wanted to kill people and seize the ship. Go. Zhang Yi waved his hand and shot all the bullets back. The gunmen hiding in the snow were all penetrated by their bullets and suffered heavy casualties. Screams and exclamations rang out on the island. Zhang Yi heard angry curses in his ears. The people who came were one of the famous violent organizations on Yanlu Island today. The leader was named Kunbi, from the small country of Nanyang. After their people discovered the gene phone, they immediately ambushed around, intending to kill people and seize the ship. But unexpectedly, the stubble was so tough. Kunbi's eyes were fixed on the group of people in white combat uniforms. Just by the clothes, you can know that those people are not ordinary. But instead of being trapped on this island and waiting to die, it is better to fight. Maybe there's still a way to survive. Little ones, charge. Kunbi stood up with a rifle in his hand and shot at Zhang Yi and the others. They are all minions. Zhang Yi was too lazy to waste time. He took out 2 golden desert eagles, laid the guns flat, and locked onto dozens of enemies hundreds of meters away with his accurate shooting ability. The gunshots rang out like firecrackers. Every time Zhang Yi fired a bullet, an enemy was shot in the head and died. The crew members were not idle either. They were all well-trained sailors. They were good sailors when they put down their guns and good soldiers when they picked up their guns. Everyone held up their guns and started to fight back. Originally, the enemy was in the open, and we were in the dark. Zhang Yi and others were standing in the port without cover and were easily surrounded and annihilated. However, on the one hand, Zhang Yi had the ability to swallow bullets, and on the other hand, to put it bluntly, even if Zhang Yi and others stood there and let the other side shoot with their combat uniforms, nor could the refugees shoot through it with their broken guns. In less than a minute, almost all the invading villains were wiped out. Even if they realized that something was wrong and wanted to escape, they could never avoid the bullet shot by Zhang Yi. The leader of this organization, Kunbi, did not expect the enemy to be so powerful. I can only fight to the death. Let you see how powerful I am. Kunbi's body suddenly twisted and turned into a strange creature covered with white bone spurs, like a giant centipede. Then he plunged directly into the snow and rushed towards Zhang Yi and others from under the ice and snow. Soon, Zhang Yi frowned and felt the attack that was about to be launched from underground. He was indifferent, just took out his holy judgment, and then stabbed it into the snow with a backhand knife. Swish! A stream of blood gushed out directly from the ground, followed by a heart-wrenching scream. Zhang Yi used force and picked up Kunbi's body and flew out. The alien is probably only beta level. Kunbi's appearance frightened Zhou Kuer and Zhu Yonk. Women instinctively fear this kind of insect, especially the nearly 2-meter-long centipede. Who wouldn't be scared when seeing it? Only Zhang Yi, who has killed countless people, has long been numb to strange sights. Who are you? Why are you attacking us? Zhang Yi asked with a smile, with a condescending and playful attitude. If someone in the Jiangnan region knew that a beta-level alien dared to sneak attack, chaos, everyone would laugh their heads off. Forgive me, I won't dare to do it again. I know I was wrong. Kunbi twisted on the tip of the knife, wailing for mercy. Zhang Yi suddenly lost interest in him because he looked like a useless coward. No, you just know you're going to die. Zhang Yi exerted force in his hand and threw him to the ground, and then Zhang Yi followed him. Kunbi twisted his body and tried to escape, but Zhang Yi pierced his body with another knife. Puff! Blood splattered again. I heard that centipedes are very difficult to kill. Zhang Yi stabbed his long body from head to tail, one knife after another, until his body was almost cut in half. Chapter 805 Snowwolf, Happy National Day. As soon as Zhang Yi and his team landed, they were attacked by armed groups on Yanlu Island, which proved that Zhang Yi's caution was right. If the people who came today were not him, but ordinary rescue teams, they would have been killed by random gunfire. The gunshot should attract a lot of people's attention. Zhou Kuer said to Zhang Yi. It doesn't matter. It seems that there are no masters on this island, Zhang Yi said lightly. This beta-level alien dared to attack them blatantly, which means that even if there are aliens on this island, their level is not very high. It's no wonder, after all, Yanlu Island can be said to be isolated from the world now. I'm afraid that they have awakened a little bit of superpowers and think they are invincible. At this time, a crew member suddenly raised his gun and shouted loudly in the distance. Who is it? Come out quickly. Don't shoot, don't shoot. I'm from Huaxiu. A man came from a distance with his hands raised. He was wearing a white down jacket and his head was covered tightly by a hat. Only half of his face could be seen, but he didn't seem to be very old. Are you the rescue team sent by Huaxiu country? The man came over and asked cautiously. Zhang Yi and Zhu Yonk looked at each other and asked him, Are you Snowwolf? The man was stunned for a moment, and then tears came out of his dry eyes. Are you from my hometown? Zhang Yi nodded. Yes, it's us. He actually covered his eyes and knelt on the ground, sobbing and crying. Great, you are finally here, great, great. He was a little incoherent and kept muttering great. Zhang Yi could understand his mood. In such an isolated place, there was no food, and there were murderous villains around. This kind of despair was not something that ordinary people could understand. Zhu Yonk saw the man's appearance and felt distressed. He hurried over to help him up. After some inquiries, Zhang Yi learned the man's identity. His name is Li Zhongyu, a Chinese American. His father immigrated to Qingdao in the last century. The main language of Qingdao is Chinese, so Li Zhongyu speaks Chinese very fluently. He is a history teacher in a school in Qingdao. Originally, they came to Yanlu Island because of a trip organized by the school. As a result, the sudden cold wave trapped them here. Don't worry, we are here to take you home. Zhu Yonk listened to Li Zhongyu's story with a distressed face. According to Li Zhongyu, after the end of the world, this island has slowly turned into a purgatory on Earth. More than half of their team has died, and most of them have become food for the evil organization. After listening to Li Zhongyu's words, Zhang Yi's heart did not fluctuate too much. Zhang Yi had seen too many such things when he was in Tianhai City, and it was nothing. At least compared to those people who died tragically in Tianhai City, Li Zhongyu and others are much happier. At least they're still alive. Seeing Zhu Yang's compassionate look, Zhang Yi frowned. They came here just to take Li Zongyu back, but they would not give extra promises. The premise is to confirm that the information Li Zongyu passed to Blizzard City is true. Hey, Li Zongyu. Zhang Yi walked in front of him and stared at him with an indifferent expression. Where is the thing you mentioned? Is it on you? Li Zongyu was alert. After hesitating for a while, he nodded slowly. I don't have the thing on me. As long as you take us away, I will definitely give it to you as promised. Besides, that thing was not obtained from Yanlu Island. If you want to know the location of that place, save our lives first. Didn't get it from Yanlu Island? Zhang Yi frowned slightly, which means that the mission is not over yet, right? Zhang Yi smiled faintly. Very good, very smart. Li Zongyu's approach was very cautious, which made Zhang Yi admire him a little. Before confirming that he has gained enough benefits, he will never hand over the trump card in his hand. How many of you are still alive? Zhang Yi asked faintly. Li Zongyu replied, there are more than 30 people. Zhang Yi can fully accept this number, which is much less than he expected. Very good, I can take you back. In front of Zhu Yang, Zhang Yi did not ask about the mysterious stone again. Anyway, after getting on the boat, he had plenty of time to ask slowly. Where are your people? Zhang Yi looked around and found no one else. Li Zongyu took a deep breath and pointed to the distance. They are all hiding in the cave. I heard the gunshots and came to check the situation. Zhang Yi said, take us over to have a look. He smiled and said, it seems that there are still many people on this island. We have to leave quickly without delay. The gunshots were so loud that they could be heard throughout the island. Naturally, they also attracted some people's prying eyes. Wait. Zhang Yi didn't care about other people. He just came to complete the mission, and the lives of others had nothing to do with him. Li Zongyu hurriedly led the way for Zhang Yi. They crossed a beach and came to the bottom of the cliff. Li Zongyu came to a pile of rocks, pointed there, and said, we have been staying here all the time. We can enter by moving the rocks. Excuse me, please help me. Zhu Yang smiled and nodded. There's nothing wrong with being cautious. You are very smart. She looked at the crew next to her. Please help move the rocks. Slow. Zhang Yi stretched out his hand to stop them. He looked at Li Zongyu with a slightly playful look. Why can't you do it yourself? Li Zongyu's expression was stunned, and he smiled a little unnaturally. Seeing this, Zhu Yang frowned and criticized Zhang Yi. Mr. Zhang, it's time now. Why are you still so mean? They have suffered so much on the island. Just asking your people to help move the rocks. Is it difficult? Zhang Yi ignored Zhu Yang, but stretched out his right index finger and pointed at Li Zongyu. He smiled and said, would a person who dared to come out alone to investigate the situation when there were bullets flying outside be an ordinary person? Am I right, Snow Wolf? You are also a person with special abilities. Zhang Yi slowly opened his eyes and said in a somewhat cold voice, you are very cautious, which I admire. But your strength is insignificant in my eyes. So, don't hide yourself unnecessarily. It will only make me feel bored. Do you understand? Li Zongyu smiled bitterly when he heard this. I didn't intend to hide anything. After saying this, he began to show obvious changes in his body in front of everyone. He began to grow white hair all over his body became larger, and he grew fangs and claws. After a while, he turned into a white snow wolf more than 2 meters tall. An orc-type person with special abilities. I knew it would be like this. Otherwise, you can't survive on this island, Zhang Yi said. He saw that he was just a beta-level person with special abilities, and he didn't have much potential, let alone lethality. If a real fight broke out, I'm afraid even a fully armed crew member would have a chance to kill him. It was just to protect myself. Even so, I had to witness many people around me die. Li Zongyu said with some sadness. He alone could not protect everyone around him. After all, if everyone wanted to survive, they had to get food and fuel. These were important supplies that could make people fight for their lives on Yanlu Island. Chapter 806. The Survivors of Yanlu Island. Li Zongyu personally moved the big stone blocking the cave, revealing a cave entrance that was only more than 1 meter wide. He regained his human form and took the lead to crawl in. Zhang Yi was secretly alert and let 2 crew members go in first, and then he walked in the middle with Zhou Qier and Zhu Yank. 4 crew members followed behind. The cave was very dark, and the crew turned on the lights, which immediately illuminated the entire cave. It was warm and humid inside, and there was a smell of sulfur. This is a very common smell in hot springs. Zhang Yi said in surprise, I thought it would be very smelly here. How do you solve the problems of bathing and excretion on weekdays? Li Zhongyu explained, I know some medical skills, so I will remind everyone to pay attention to personal hygiene to avoid infectious diseases. There is a hot spring below that can clean the body. As for excrement, there are special channels for storage, which can be used as fertilizer to grow food. At this point, he smiled bitterly. Originally, we were planning to implement a sustainable development strategy here. However, there are no farmers here, and we are not good at planting. Moreover, the growth cycle of food is too long, and we can't wait that long. Zhang Yi looked at him and said lightly, Your idea is good. Zhang Yi asked himself, if he was placed in such an environment, what would he do? Well, no need to think, he already had the answer in his heart. He would not become Li Zhongyu, but Kunbi. Not long after walking, Zhang Yi vaguely saw a light source deep in the cave. As if there was light. The light did not come from a fire or a lighting lamp, but from a green or on the rock wall deep in the cave. They emitted a faint light in the darkness. Although it was not too bright, it could barely allow people to see the scenery around 2 or 3 meters. Zhang Yi walked beside Li Zhongyu and asked casually, How did you get in touch with the Jiangnan region from such a long distance? Isn't the signal a problem? Li Zhongyu smiled faintly and took out a Huawei Mate 600 from his pocket. Zhang Yi nodded in understanding. So that's the case. Their mobile phones are indeed world-class in terms of signal. Li Zhongyu scratched his head. In fact, there is a base station on the island. It was also built by Huawei. Zhang Yi couldn't help laughing twice. In this regard, Huawei is indeed far ahead. Not long after, they came to the cave where Li Zhongyu and others lived. However, when they arrived at the entrance, there were 2 men with guns in their hands guarding it. Stop, who are you? The 2 men raised their guns and said vigilantly, It's me. I'm here with the rescue team. Li Zhongyu stepped forward and showed his face. Rescue team? The 2 men were full of suspicion, with a hint of joy in their eyes, but more of caution. Is this the rescue team from Huaxi country that you mentioned before? Li Zhongyu nodded. Yes, we are saved. We can follow their ship back to the land and no longer have to live a life of hunger and starvation like this. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. Li Zhongyu thought too well. Life on land is even worse than on the island. However, after taking them back, Zhang Yi and the Jiangnan district will naturally make arrangements for them. At least they will not starve to death. However, the expressions of the 2 gatekeepers made Zhang Yi feel a little strange. They showed very complicated feelings about the arrival of him and others. What's going on? When a person meets a savior in a desperate situation, shouldn't he cry with joy? He realized that things were not that simple. But it didn't matter to him. He just wanted to take Li Zhongyu away. To be precise, the stone that was suspected to be the source of God in his hand. Li Zhongyu turned around and said to Zhang Yi with a smile, Everyone, please wait here for a moment. Inside is where they live. It may be a little messy. I'll ask them to clean it up so that it won't bother you. As he said that, he pointed to a few large rocks on the ground. Everyone, please take a seat. Zhang Yi said lightly, No, we'll wait here. He stepped forward, stared into Li Zhongyu's eyes, smiled, and said meaningfully, If there is anything to discuss, discuss it quickly. Time waits for no one. And we can't stay here for too long. Li Zhongyu swallowed his saliva, turned his face away with an unnatural expression, and even covered his mouth with his hand in embarrassment. As if to hide his embarrassment, he licked his lips and wiped his hair with his hand. I'll ask them to pack up their things, and they won't bother you. After that, Li Zhongyu pulled the 2 gatekeepers into the depths of the cave. The cave was well lit, and it was a space of 200 to 300 square meters. There were tents, cooking utensils, and even clothes hung to dry everywhere. However, the living area was very clean and there was no feces and garbage everywhere. At this time, in the middle of the cave, dozens of people sat together, and in the middle was a glowing ore that had been dug up, illuminating a space. A middle-aged man with a short stature but a strange appearance stood in the center of the circle, speaking in a firm and powerful tone. The current situation is only a temporary difficulty. I believe that the end of the world will soon pass, and we will be saved. Yesterday was cruel, and today is even crueler. But tomorrow is beautiful. Most people died tonight, and will not see the sun tomorrow. So, everyone must hold on, and don't lose faith. Have hope for the future. His name is Ma Wenjung, an entrepreneur in the team. Now, he works part-time as a priest, and is also one of the spiritual leaders of the team. As his passionate speech ended, there was sparse applause at the scene. Although the refugees around him looked a little tired and numb, after listening to his words, many people's eyes lit up. When hope is cut off, people need encouragement and need others to tell them that there is still tomorrow to live. At a glance, the composition of the personnel in this team is complex. It can be said to be a rainbow team with people from many countries in it. In the end of the world, they chose to gather together for warmth and tide over the difficulties. Lee Zongyu walked in with his people, and he said to everyone excitedly, "Everyone, I found someone to save us. The rescue team has landed and will take us back soon." Hearing what Lee Zongyu said, everyone immediately jumped up from the ground and rushed over to surround him. "Really? Someone really came to save us? I knew it. I knew it would be like this." Someone was so excited that he hugged his head and cried on the spot. "Is it the Colombian Naval Force?" A man wearing gold-rimmed glasses was excited. "I knew that Colombia would not abandon its citizens. I sent them hundreds of messages for help, and they finally came. Thank God, thank Colombia. It did not abandon its people." The man with glasses was so excited that he knelt on the ground, tears in his eyes, and prayed devoutly. Chapter 807. The Dispute of the Rock Flow Group. Hearing what the bespectacled man Joe Andy said, the others also thought that it was the Colombian Sea Rescue Team coming, and they cheered. "Great, if we can go to Colombia, we will definitely have a good life. Colombia is the most beautiful country in the world, with abundant supplies and happy people. A group of people have already started a carnival. After all, they have been in a desperate situation for a long time, and just a little fantasy is enough for them to have a big dream." Lee Zongyu saw this and said with some displeasure, "It's the rescue ship of Huashu country." The atmosphere at the scene suddenly froze. Joe Andy's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, "What? Huashu's rescue ship? Mr. Lee Zongyu, why did you ask them for help instead of Colombia?" In the crowd, a blonde foreigner with a beard longer than his hair said loudly, "I don't want to go to Huashu. I am a citizen of Colombia. I want to wait for the Colombian Navy to take me home. This is the right given to me by the Constitution." In another direction, a thin and short middle-aged man said in broken English, "Mr. Lee, as a local official of Silla, I can tell you very clearly that Huashu is not an ideal country. My suggestion is to go to Colombia or even Mali." Zhang Yi's suspicion is justified. Some of these rich people who are vacationing on Yanlu Island are not willing to go to Huashu for refuge. In fact, this dispute has existed for a very long time. There are 3 factions in their group. One faction is the Huashu faction headed by Lee Zongyu, advocating to seek help from Huashu country. These people are either Huashu people or overseas Chinese. One faction is the foreign faction, hoping to go to the Western countries. The third faction is the middle faction, going with the flow, and has no clear opinions. It doesn't matter where you go, as long as you can survive. Che Haicheng and others are staunch foreign factions. Several people refuted Lee Zongyu's approach without hesitation, thinking that he had caused trouble for everyone. Lee Zongyu rubbed his temples. "We have tried countless times before and asked for help from surrounding countries. But no country responded to us. Now only Huashu country is willing to save us. Let's go with them. Survival is the most important thing." Lee Zongyu's girlfriend Zhang Weiwei walked up to him and firmly supported him. "Now is not the time to quarrel. Yanlu Island is getting more and more dangerous. We are short of food, and other survivors have started fighting. If we wait any longer, I am afraid that we will not wait for rescue, but for killing. A clip sound suddenly sounded in the team. Oh, stop arguing, just go to Huaxi country. Anyway, there is no other choice now, just stay there for a while. If we can find a way to leave later, we can go somewhere else, right? She said proudly. Don't worry, I am very familiar with the way to leave Huaxi country. My mother and I left from there. Besides, my old man used to hold a senior position there. She smiled proudly. I will take care of you when the time comes. The girl was not tall, slightly fat, and looked delicate. The people in the team had long been familiar with each other and knew that what she said was not false. Sun Wanxi, nicknamed Xiaoyer, her father was once a local senior official, and her father and uncles also held important positions. However, Sun Wanxi grew up abroad since childhood and later simply immigrated abroad. Sun Wanxi's words made Che Haiqing and others look thoughtful. At this time, part-time priest Ma Wenjing also came over. He said slowly and firmly, I think it's okay for everyone to go back to Huaxi together. Now we have to consider how to survive first, and other conflicts should be discussed later. Zhou Andy couldn't help but sneered when he heard Ma Wenjing speak. Mr. Ma, you are from Huaxi. Of course you want to go back. After returning there, you can be your boss again. Can you be the same as us? The people here don't fully understand what happened in the outside world. Some people even thought that this was just a large-scale snowstorm, and a large part of human civilization was still preserved. Ma Wenjing said calmly, it's not this that is important, but where you can survive. He pondered, the world outside may be worse than we thought. We must consider whether this is our only chance to survive. After he finished speaking, he walked to Li Zongyu's side. I agree to go back to Huaxi. Li Zongyu looked at the people who were still hesitating in front of him. Although they all had their own problems and conflicts broke out between each other. However, after all, they had lived together for half a year, and this feeling of life and death made him unwilling to give up anyone. No matter what, I have decided to follow their ship back. I hope you can all go with me. Everyone, please trust me for once. Everyone looked at each other and whispered. This is an opportunity, but do we really want to go to Huaxi? We are unfamiliar with the place. What are we going there for? The Huaxi people and overseas Chinese are okay, but we don't speak the same language. I don't like that country. I would rather go to Colombia or Vinya. Even Marley is fine. Shouldn't they rescue us out of international humanitarianism? In the crowd, Silla official Che Haiqing frowned and thought for a long time and finally walked to Li Zongyu obediently. Mr. Li, I believe you will lead everyone to a better life. So, I decided to leave with you. The only feeling that Che Haiqing gave people in the team was smart. He never suffers any loss no matter what he does. So after he chose to go to Huaxi Kingdom, many people couldn't help it and stood on Li Zongyu's side. In the end, under their persuasion, most people chose to leave with Huaxi Kingdom's rescue ship. Only 5 or 6 people stubbornly chose to stay. I have sent a distress signal to Colombia, and they will definitely come. This is the power I should have. The few people who stayed behind were all Colombians. They always firmly believed that the rescue ship from Colombia would travel thousands of miles to take them home. After Li Zongyu and others tried to persuade them to no avail, they had no choice but to respect them. Zhang Weiwei thought for a while and said to everyone, since we are going to board the ship and leave, let's leave some of our food and clothes for them. As soon as these words came out, most people stepped back and no one wanted to stand in the front. Che Haiqing sighed. Weiwei, your idea is good. But it is still unknown whether we can leave now. As for the ship of Huaxi Kingdom, I think it is better to remain skeptical. Besides, even if we get on board, who can tell what they will do to us? It is important to keep some emergency supplies on you. So I have to keep my food and water for myself. He held his backpack tightly, and he looked like Gollum protecting the ring. If anyone came to grab it, he would fight with them. Chapter 8. 8 Hot Spring Bath. Che Haiqing's attitude reflected the thoughts of most people. They agreed quietly, and no one was willing to give their own supplies to the Colombians. Some people even gloated and mocked. They don't want to leave. What does it have to do with me? We are all adults. We have to walk the path we choose. Zhang Weiwei was helpless and could only silently leave some of her food and fresh water. There were also a few people who left some water and food like her. After Li Zhongyu counted the number of people who decided to leave, he asked them to wait here for a while he went to find Zhang Yi and Zhu Yonk. At this time, Zhang Yi and others were not idle. Among the sailors who accompanied them, the experienced ones found the nearby hot springs at once. Zhang Yi asked 2 crew members to guard the cave, and he took Zhu Yonk and Zhou Ke to the hot spring. It was a smoky place deep underground. There was a pool of bubbling hot spring water, exuding the smell of sulfur. Zhou Ke said happily, "This spring water is very good for the body and can also treat skin diseases. There is even a saying that it can keep women's skin young." Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and asked jokingly, "Why? Do you want to soak here for a while?" Zhou Ke blushed. "No, I'm very busy now. I'm embarrassed to waste everyone's time." Zhu Yonk felt itchy. On the ship, taking a bath is a luxury. After all, the freshwater resources on the ship are limited, and everyone has to use it in limited quantities. Even she can only take a hot bath once a week, and each time cannot exceed 10 minutes. So when she saw such a good hot spring, she felt itchy all over her body and wanted to jump in and take a bath. However, if she knew that the limited use of water resources was only for her, she would probably be angry to death. The freshwater resources for ocean voyages are indeed limited, but the amount of water Zhang Yi carried with him, is far from enough. "Zhang Yi, I want to take a bath here." Zhu Yonk stared at Zhang Yi and asked with a look that did not allow rejection. Zhang Yi touched his chin and planned to take the hot spring water back. But it would be meaningless to take a hot spring bath if it was not in this environment. So he nodded, "Okay, let's take a bath here first." After getting Zhang Yi's nod, Zhou Ke and Zhu Yonk were very happy. Zhang Yi asked several crew members to guard outside while he took a hot spring bath inside. There are several springs in the hot spring. Zhu Yonk asked Zhang Yi for a bath towel and then ran to another place. Zhang Yi naturally took a bath with Zhou Ke so they could rub each other's backs. You really don't say. Zhang Yi hasn't taken a hot spring bath for a long time. The last time he remembered was a year ago, when he and several colleagues from the company went to a hot spring bath for a team-building trip. When thinking about the past, Zhang Yi couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Those colleagues and friends have all died in the end of the world. Fortunately, there are other people around him now. For example, Zhou Ke, she and Zhang Yi lay in the pool together, enjoying the relaxation of the hot spring. The feeling of every muscle relaxing is very comfortable. People who like to take a bath know that the perfect season for taking a bath is in the cold winter. The colder it is outside, the better. The colder it is outside, the more comfortable it is to take a hot spring bath. Li Zhongyu came to find Zhang Yi. When he learned that Zhang Yi was taking a bath, he waited there honestly. After more than half an hour, Zhang Yi finished taking a bath. "This thing makes your head dizzy after taking a bath for a long time," he shouted to the cave next to him. "It's almost time to go back," Zhang Yi said while drinking the watermelon juice in his hand. Taking a hot spring bath and drinking beverages are also a great pleasure in life. But after shouting several times, there was no response from the other end. Zhou Ke frowned worriedly. Could she have fainted from the baths? Seeing this, Zhang Yi said to her, "Go and have a look." Zhou Ke was very surprised. Zhang Yi's gentlemanly behavior made her a little puzzled. Zhang Yi sneered, "I just don't like to cause trouble. If a lady with a special status like Zhu Yonk saw her body, she might be blamed. This is similar to the pervert on the train back then. If someone calls you a pervert right away, you have no place to complain." Zhou Ke understood what Zhang Yi meant and went to find Zhu Yonk. After a while, Zhou Ke came over with Zhu Yonk, whose face was flushed. She looked like she had been soaking too much, and her blood was boiling. But when she saw Zhang Yi, a hint of resentment flashed in her eyes. She had given him such a chance, but Zhang Yi just didn't take the bait. What else could she do? "Let's go." Zhang Yi didn't express too much concern, but just said it coldly, then turned around and walked outside. Zhu Yonk gritted her teeth. Soon, they met the people from Li Zongyu's team. Since they are the survivors on Yanlu Island, let's call them Yanlu Group. Zhang Yi looked over and found some familiar faces. They were not his acquaintances. But among these people, there were some wealthy businessmen from Huaxu country and even local officials from Tianhai City. Zhang Yi had seen them on TV. It makes sense. To be able to come to an island in the ocean for vacation, one must have some family background. How can ordinary people have the leisure time and funds? At this moment, Zhang Yi suddenly heard an excited clip sound. Ah, it's Alice. You are Alice. Soon Wanshi ran out of the Yanlu group excitedly and ran straight to Zhu Yonk. Senior sister, do you still remember me? Zhu Yonk looked at the girl in front of him, thought for a while, and said in surprise, Are you Lisa? You are here. Soon Wanshi's body trembled with excitement. Senior, it's great to see you here. Are you also a member of the rescue team? Zhu Yonk gathered her hair, nodded, and smiled. My uncle is the head of the Jiangnan region of Huaxu country. This time, a friend and I are leading the team to rescue you. Soon Wanshi opened her eyes wide, excited. Oh, my goodness. This is really great. I feel more at ease with you here, senior. At first I was very afraid. I didn't know who was coming. But if you are here, I will rest assured. Soon Wanshi, like Zhu Yonk, is studying at MIT. Of course, it is not based on grades, but on the quota obtained by donating funds. People with their identities have their own circles in Colombia. It is not surprising that they know each other, and it can even be said to be inevitable. After all, no matter where they go, Huaxu people are used to sticking together. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and didn't take it to heart. He asked someone to count the number of people and then said to them, Before taking you away, I must first declare the discipline. Chapter 809 Xiaozhang. I have to criticize you, add 1. After everyone arrived, Zhang Yi first explained the ship's discipline to them. After you get on board, I will distribute the necessary food and freshwater resources for everyone to ensure your survival. But you must obey all my orders unconditionally. Of course, I won't ask you to kill or burn people or sell your bodies. But at least no one should cause me trouble at sea. Because this trip has consumed a lot of time, energy, and resources. And there are many risks in sailing at sea. For example, sea monsters, pirates, and bad weather. Zhang Yi put his hands behind his back and said sternly, Any behavior that will cause me trouble, I will absolutely not tolerate it. Whoever dares to violate it, he raised a cold smile at the corner of his mouth, I will throw him into the icy sea. These words made many people shudder. So scary. The rescue team of Huaxu country is not humane at all. They actually said such words to us disaster victims. Well, I'm starting to regret it now. Soon Wanshi also said to Zhu Yonk, Your team member is so scary. You don't care about him. How can you say that? Wouldn't this affect the image of Huaxu country? Zhu Yonk also wanted to save face in front of her schoolmate, so she said, He has always been like this. I just don't bother to say anything to him. At this point, she seemed to make up for herself and continued, But he did this so that he could rescue you back smoothly. So you should cooperate with him. Listening to the murmurs of the crowd, Zhang Yi smiled faintly. Don't say that I don't give you a chance. Anyone who thinks I am overbearing and ruthless can choose to stay now. You can choose for yourself. There was a lot of discussion in the crowd. From their faces, it can be seen that they are very dissatisfied with Zhang Yi's attitude and are also worried about their lives after getting on the ship. But no one chose to quit. After all, staying is likely to wait for death. No one can guarantee whether there will be a second ship to arrive at this island. Seeing that no one objected, Zhang Yi continued, Now, please hand over all your weapons and communication equipment. In particular, no one is allowed to hide weapons on their person. Firearms, ammunition, fruit knives, and even nail clippers are not allowed to be privately kept. Someone in the crowd asked sarcastically, What if your nails grow long and you want to cut them? Zhang Yi smiled and narrowed his eyes. You can grind them on the floor. Li Zongyu hurriedly said, Please believe the people sent by Huaxu country. They are here to save us. Only by trusting them can we leave this hellhole. The people of the Yanlu group were reluctant, but they still handed over all their weapons and communication equipment. This collection resulted in more than a dozen guns, but there were not many bullets left. In addition, there were knives, iron rods, and other items. But Zhang Yi understood that if people really wanted to fight, anything could become a weapon. He was just trying to avoid as much as possible. This group of people were looking for death. Zhang Yi was not worried that they would cause trouble at sea. He just hated trouble. At this time, Che Haicheng came to Zhang Yi and nodded. "Sir, my name is Che Haicheng from Silla. Thank you very much for coming to rescue us. Please accept my respect," he said, bowing to Zhang Yi at 90 degrees. His movements were very skillful. Zhang Yi saw that this old guy was quite sensible. Yeah. He just nodded, without saying much. Zhang Yi didn't like this kind of mercenary guy, but he couldn't say he hated him either. Because this kind of people always get along well in society. "If there is anything you need me to do, please tell me. You are my savior, and my life belongs to you from now on." Che Haicheng flattered Zhang Yi tirelessly, and as he spoke, his eyes became wet and tears fell. Zhang Yi just said lightly, "Just take care of yourself and don't make trouble for me." "Yes, I will strictly follow your instructions." After Che Haicheng stood up, he turned and looked at the other people in the Yanlu group, shouting loudly, "Long live Huashu country! Long live Mr. Zhang!" Not to mention, several of Che Haicheng's friends in the Yanlu group really shouted loudly. The others saw this and looked disgusted. But some people were smart enough to learn from him and flattered Zhang Yi. "We entrust our lives and property to you. Please make sure to take us back alive. You are our savior, an angel sent by God." A stream of flattery poured down on Zhang Yi. More than an hour ago, they were still disdainfully evaluating the rescue team of Huashu country, complaining why they were not from Colombia and other countries. Zhang Yi didn't care about it, because he knew what kind of people they were. They were basically officials or wealthy businessmen from various countries who came on vacation, as well as their families. He didn't have much affection for these people and was indifferent to their flattery. But for someone like Che Haicheng, doing so was very important. No matter how cold Zhang Yi's attitude towards them was, they would spare no effort to please Zhang Yi. Words and dignity were worth every penny at this time. Not worth it. But it is possible to get a chance to survive at a critical moment by gaining a little favor from Zhang Yi. They are always so smart. Before setting off, Zhang Yi asked Li Zhongyu, "Are all the people here?" Li Zhongyu sighed helplessly. "A few people are unwilling to leave. They are all Colombians and are still waiting for the Colombian rescue team to pick them up." Zhang Yi nodded. "Oh. It doesn't matter if they don't want to go with us. I always respect other people's opinions." When he spoke, he glanced at the crew next to him and swept his right hand across his neck twice. Seeing this, the two crew members immediately understood. The secret of the source of God must not be leaked. Not to mention the Colombians. A group of people left the cave. When they left, those who chose to stay looked at the empty cave and suddenly felt a huge panic in their hearts. They hesitated for a long time and finally decided to stay and wait for the rescue ship of their country to pick them up. But while they were waiting, footsteps came from the entrance of the cave. Several foreigners were surprised because they saw that the crew members who came back were the ones who had gone there. "What do you want?" The two crew members smiled and took out their silenced pistols. Soon, a biubiu sound was heard in the cave. Zhang Yi and his crew left the cave and headed towards the port. After a while, two crew members caught up with them. "Excuse me, we just went to relieve ourselves." Zhang Yi glanced at them, and after eye contact, he knew that the matter was done. "Return to the team." The two returned to the team. This sign made some people murmur in their hearts. For example, Ma Wenjing seemed to have guessed something. However, he did not speak, but just shook his head slowly. Continued to move forward towards the port. The people of the Yanlu group saw the broken bodies along the way and couldn't help but tremble with fear. "These bodies are all fresh. How did they die?" Ma Wenjing asked. Zhang Yi said calmly, "I killed them." Che Haicheng quickly praised, "Well done." These people must have had ulterior motives. It is so gratifying to be killed by the brave Mr. Zhang and his crew. Soon Wanqi walked beside Zhu Yonk. Relying on her relationship with Zhu Yonk and her self-proclaimed identity as a father, she always had a condescending expression on her face. Even Zhang Yi was regarded by her as someone who was ordered to save her little princess. Looking at so many corpses on the ground, she was so scared that her face turned pale, and she kept covering her chest. She couldn't help but say to Zhang Yi, "Don't you think it's too cruel to kill them?" Zhang Yi was stunned for a moment, his brows knitted together, and he stared at Sun Wanqi's face with amusement. "They are bandits. Are you feeling sorry for them?" Sun Wanqi shook her head. "No, they are not bandits. They are just a group of poor people struggling to survive. In the past, they were struggling to survive, but now you are here, and you obviously have the opportunity to take them away. Why do you have to kill them?" Sun Wanqi stared at Zhang Yi righteously. "I have to criticize you. Your actions have greatly affected the international image of Huashu country." Chapter 8:10 Food Factory. Sun Wanqi's words made Zhang Yi stop. She had been chatting with Zhu Yonk all along the way, and Zhang Yi knew her identity. "Are you from Huashu?" Zhang Yi stared at her and asked coldly. Sun Wanqi said disapprovingly, "At least my fathers lived on that land in the past and made outstanding contributions to that land. And I'm criticizing you from a humanitarian perspective. It has nothing to do with which country I'm from." Zhang Yi's mouth corners rose. People who are familiar with him know that the woman in front of him is going to be miserable. "Contribution? Haha, what a contribution your father made." Zhu Yonk came over and said to Zhang Yi, "Forget it, don't bother with her. She hasn't suffered any hardship since she was a child, and she doesn't know much about the world." She leaned close to Zhang Yi's ear and said she even revealed her family background on the internet before. "Such a silly girl. Why are you bothering with her?" Zhang Yi said coldly, "I hate those who talk without any pain in their backs the most." Sun Wanqi was still righteously promoting her own ideas. "When I was studying in Colombia, I would help the homeless and hungry African children every year. I believe that people should be united and friendly, not hate each other." She lowered her eyes somewhat dejectedly. "This may not be easy for you Chinese to understand. After all, the people of Huashu country are generally selfish and numb." These words made some Huashu people in the Yanlu group change their faces. Li Zongyu's girlfriend Zhang Weiwei pulled her sleeve and frowned. "Say less. Don't generalize." Sun Wanqi raised her neck stubbornly. "But this is what I saw." She pointed at Zhang Yi. "You see, he did it too much. Why must we use killing to solve the problem?" For quite a long time, Zhang Yi thought that the so-called saints and the vast majority of idiots only existed on the internet and were hard to meet in reality. But today, he opened his eyes. His brain circuit could not understand how there could be such people in the world. Maybe he ate too much three-way milk powder when he was a child. He did not respond to Sun Wanqi's words, but said lightly, "Let's go to a nearby place first." As he said that, he changed direction and did not go to the port, but went to another direction on the island. Li Zongyu hurriedly asked, "Mr. Zhang, where are we going?" Zhang Yi said, "The lair of these villains." Li Zongyu thought about it and suddenly realized, "Do you want to collect their supplies?" Yes, it is easy to be short of supplies when sailing on the ocean. They thought Zhang Yi was going to collect the spoils, so they followed him without thinking too much. Along the way, Sun Wanqi saw that Zhang Yi did not refute her words, and she immediately became excited. She thought Zhang Yi knew her identity and was afraid of the power of her father's generation and could only swallow his anger. So she spoke more unscrupulously. "To be honest, Huashu country does have many problems. The large population also leads to low quality." Well, I don't mean to be sarcastic. I am just making rational, neutral, and objective comments. If it weren't for this, my father and mother wouldn't have sent me to Jelenwaya to study at MIT since I was a child. If I go back this time, I think it is necessary to change the views of the people there. Roar, but it may be useless. She tried her best to belittle Huashu country, trying to prove that she was right to leave and to show her nobility. Zhang Yi had a sneer on his lips, and he didn't say a word, silently waiting for something. After a while, They came to the base camp of the previous gang of villains. This is also a cave, but it is not underground. When they first got outside, everyone's face changed drastically. The ground was full of black blood and bone frames. Obviously, they were all human bones. There was even flesh and blood that had not been removed on the skeleton. There was a huge chopping board at the entrance of a cave, and the axe and machete on it exuded a disgusting stench. Let's go inside and have a look. Zhang Yi was wearing combat uniforms and had a mask to block the stench, so he was not worried and smiled and invited everyone to go inside and have a look. Li Zhongyu said, "The supplies must be stored inside. Let's go and look for them. This is also for our future voyage." Soon Wanshi pinched her nose and yelled, "Why do you want us to come here? Can't you just look for it yourself?" Zhang Yi walked over impatiently and grabbed her long ponytail. Zhang Yi was very strong, and soon Wanshi burst into tears on the spot because of the pain. "Ah, it hurts so much, so much, so much. Let go. You're killing me." Zhang Yi said with a smile, "Didn't you tell me to be kind and generous before? Come on, I'll show you what kind of people I killed. Do you see these skeletons? These are nothing. The main course is inside." He dragged Soon Wanshi into the cave without saying anything, and the stench inside made people want to vomit. Zhu Yonk wanted to say something more to persuade him, but when she saw Zhang Yi's cold eyes, she was too scared to move forward. After entering the cave, Zhang Yi threw Soon Wanshi to the ground. Soon Wanshi's eyes were full of tears, and she pinched her nose and wanted to curse. But when she looked up, she was frightened and screamed. Inside the cave, there were corpses hanging everywhere. In the end times, food is very precious, and they are reluctant to waste it. The skinned corpses were hung on the wall, and their hands were pierced with hooks like pig trotters. A bunch of gurgling things were hung on the ropes by the wall. They were large intestines, but they looked much thicker than pig large intestines. Some peeled skins were dried on the ground and used as clothes for heating. Some blood was put in a basin to make blood tofu. Everything here is like hell on earth. Soon Wanshi's eyes were almost blurred, and she only knew how to scream desperately. She retreated backwards like crazy, but accidentally put one hand into a soft and wet thing. Bang! Soon Wanshi looked and found that she had knocked over a wash basin, and all the sewage inside flowed out and got all over her. 2 eyeballs rolled over and stared at her lifelessly. Soon Wanshi was about to collapse. Although they had experienced many tragic things on Yanlu Island after the end of the world, but she had never seen such a purgatory on Earth. Zhang Yi smiled and asked, "Look, these are the food factories of those people who you said should be treated generously. Now you think those people are pitiful, but are these people hung on the wall pitiful? By the way, maybe they're your friends among these people." Thanks for staying tuned. We'll try to post more. Please subscribe for latest updates.